Just a few days ago, we got some great news. An update that a pro-Israel Democrat, Gregory Meeks, was voted chair of the key House Foreign Affairs Committee. Sounds great! A pro-Israel Democrat will be in charge of the most important foreign policy committee that impacts Israel. Fabulous news! But is that really the case? Now, check this out. A friend of mine, law professor Avi Bell, made the following Facebook post about this news item. And I'm quoting him, Gregory Meeks supports the U.S. re-entering the JCPOA Iranian nuclear deal that endangers Israel, supports the reconsideration of United States aid, and otherwise applying pressure to Israel should Israel apply its laws to any part of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, prioritizes creating a Palestinian state over good United States relations with Israel, and is a J Street endorsee. In what sense is he pro-Israel? Avi is asking a very legitimate question. Meek's whole pro-Israel agenda is about him wanting to pressure Israel to do what he believes is in the best interest for Israel, not what is in Israel's best interest. So why is he considered pro-Israel? Now, further, one of Avi's friends commented on his post, quote, well, he hasn't endorsed from the river to the sea. By some standards, that nowadays counts as pro-Israel. And that's true. Is that really how dumbed down pro-Israel credentials have become today in the Democratic Party? Just because you don't support destroying Israel, then you support Israel? Honestly, this is very sad yet very true. Many Democrats today are considered pro-Israel just because they are not totally anti-Israel, like the growing squad of Democrats who are totally anti-Israel. But here's the problem. As more and more Democrats consider themselves pro-Israel just because they are not anti-Israel, it becomes harder and harder to maintain bipartisan support for Israel, which is very important. Basically, as the anti-Israel wing of the Democratic Party grows in number and influence, it pulls everyone further to the left. We are left with a political reality that in order to maintain bipartisan support, Israel supporters, and Israel supporters of the Republican Party all have to compromise with the growing anti-Israel wing of the Democrat Party and with the let's pressure Israel, pro-Israel wing of the Democrat Party. Unfortunately, we hear more and more people who like to blame Israel for failing to maintain bipartisan support. But it's not Israel's fault. The ones responsible for the waning support of the Democratic Party and bipartisan support for Israel are the growing number of anti-Israel representatives in the Democratic Party and their cohorts who claim to be pro-Israel, but in reality are anything but. Israel cannot commit suicide just to try to receive support from the growing camp of anti-Israel Democrats in order to maintain bipartisan support. Interestingly enough, the past chair of the Foreign Relations Committee was Eliot Engel, a true pro-Israel Democrat. Yes, there are some true pro-Israel Democrats. Unfortunately, he just lost his seat to a progressive Democrat who is not pro-Israel. And this is what we're left with. A party with a dwindling representation of true pro-Israel Democratic representatives. And I'm a true believer that yes, we should want to have a strong pro-Israel camp in both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and people should be voting in representatives who are truly pro-Israel, not just because they're not anti-Israel.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.